everybody. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon. Welcome to Mental Health Matters. And today we are going to be talking to Mrs. Liz Gale. Everybody should know who that is. And if you don't, you're really missing out. She's a third generation ex-Scientologist, well, she was a third generation Scientologist, and now she's an ex-Scientologist. And what we're focusing on this week is parenting your own kids after being brought up in a cult. So, without further ado, and because I apologize, we were having technical difficulties. And one more, Gretchen will be with us, but it'll be in about 20 minutes. I'm going to bring up Liz Gale. Hi,
Hi.
Liz. How are
Hi.
you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. I appreciate that. So we've got a lot of people in the chat, and the way I tell them is we don't do the roll call at the beginning because of being mindful of our guest time. So what we do is we will do questions and answers at the end,
Okay.
unless something pops up, and John will pop it up if it's like immediate or something like that that somebody that we're talking about and they want to clarify.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll just do question and answer at the end. We appreciate everyone that's here. We appreciate everyone that that participates, and I'm so thankful to our mods. We have Aria and Kathy Ann. Aria, how is Lyric? She had her baby in the hospital. Um,
Oh,
and John is backstage, and I don't, I, I haven't really scrolled through to see who else here. Aria and Kathy Ann. Okay, and John. Great, wonderful. All right. So, um, okay, so this week we were going to talk about parenting, and
yeah.
you were like the first parent I could think of because of your son going out to college.
Yep.
We're thinking about parenting after being raised in a cult, and you've been a third generation. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So
that
it's really not just all the way that the cult indoctrinates a kid that I kind of had to erase from parenting. It's all the things that would have been, were done in my home, like like the whole culture of it. My dog
yes.
is
Oh,
already complaining.
don't
Hold
worry. I had to go get mine in.
on. Go on.
It started storming, and mine went absolutely.
Sorry about that.
Oh, Arya said pneumonia. His fever came down, but he's going to stay in the hospital a few days. Oh, Arya was actually, Liz, in
Oh.
our chat in a live. I mean, in a live on YouTube when she was in labor and she had her baby premature.
Oh my
She was
goodness.
actually. We were like, "Go deliver your baby."
Wow, what a ride.
She's amazing. Yes, but okay. So okay. So you started off great. Okay, so who were your main caregivers as a child?
Main caregivers. My parents, my father
Mhm.
and my mother, but my father, they had a pretty traditional like role, like the way that they divvied up their roles in the household and stuff. My father went off to work for the majority of the time. He was still a really hands-on, involved dad, but the day-to-day um mom, but we were my mom was also a professional Scientologist, I guess you could say. Her main role was to go up the bridge. She was like a I don't want to be reductionary here, but in a sense, like a really like the corporate business owner's wife who was like succeeding in Scientology and raising these great kids, and everything was
Right. Just
perfect.
yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But in reality, my mother was gone for really long periods of time during my early childhood, and a lot of my caregiving was actually done by third parties, nannies.
Really.
Yeah, and we moved around a lot, and so unfortunately for me, that was some of my primary, I don't know, relationships, trust, consistency, and so when we would sort of move, that caregiver would change, if that makes sense. So kind of a revolving type
Okay.
door.
They didn't go with you when you moved.
Mm-mm,
Oh,
mm-mm.
okay. Okay.
My very youngest, when I was, I guess, an infant, I don't even really remember her, but Rena Vale, she wrote me letters for years. I mean, she passed away, but so I know that relationship was very special early on, if that makes sense.
Oh,
But yeah,
atta attachment.
yeah.
I
Which
mean,
affects that affected my attachment styles and all sorts of
yeah.
things.
Yeah, and, um, okay, so Gretchen is sending me some questions, like, to lead this conversation because she was gonna be here to do this, and I had asked her to take the lead, so, because she is very interested in this topic as well as I am, but she's well more versed in the psychology side of it.
Mhm.
Um, but, so, how did you start to develop your thoughts about yourself and your relationships with others?
Hmm. Um, Good question. Some of my earliest memories were actually being audited. I mean, for lack of a better word, having Scientology processes done on me in sort of a formal setting. I mean, like at home, but there's certain language that you use in an official Scientology like process, and so those were definitely applied. So some of my earliest memories are honestly like drawing pictures in a session with
Wow.
my mom. Um, I have some early memories of my brother, my older brother, who was kind of in and out. He went to boarding school when I was around 4, and then we both were at boarding school for a while. Um, so I guess with my mom in particular, it was loving, super, super loving and fun, but always like there was always sort of like a Scientology transactional experience and expectation to that
Right.
relationship, which I understood very early. Um, and as far as my own identity of my thoughts of myself, it's kind of weird because a lot of what they're doing in those really early childhood sessions, if you have a memory, it's clearly from a past life because you haven't lived. Um, because you're new. So if you
Right.
have some kind of like memories or you say something, and often these are said during early childhood, which you might not even really remember later, those things like that kind of became a part of my known identity, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. No,
And
it
so,
does. It does.
forming my ideas of myself growing up, like I was a returning past life Scientologist. That
So
was just,
you the individuality that you are your own I'm not gonna say Satan, you are your own person, your own
mhm,
human.
mhm.
That's not it
Well,
it was
I
but it was
was
from a past life.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was actually like an honor in a
Oh, really?
sense. Yeah, it was almost like a kudos to me because I had found Scientology when it first started. I had succeeded in Scientology to the point that as a spiritual being, I mean, this is all in theory, okay, guys? Like, I'm
Oh, well,
not
I got
saying that
this.
I believe this still. um, but that I would have had the like operating Thetan, which is their term, I would have had the spiritual, like, prowess, I suppose, to choose a Scientology family to be born into so that I would then be able to pick up right where I left off, if that makes sense.
Yes, and you being 3rd generation, you just picked the right family.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and
Okay.
that was my doing, and actually, it's funny, a lot I don't know that I was told this often, but it's pretty common, I've heard from other generational Scientologists that that's kind of used to gaslight you in a way, as a kid. It's like, "Well, you chose this family. Like, if you
Mm,
don't like what we do here, that's on you."
wow. I have never heard that. That's a
Oh,
new
yeah.
no, really, no, but that's a new thing that
Mhm.
I've never heard brought up before.
Yeah, so that past life identity can really become some of, like, the earliest memories in a Scientology, like a devout Scientology home, because a lot of times parents and people around them are taking things that they say as factual memories from their past lives. Like a little girl in our family, she used to say something like she had a boat. She like had to get her boat because there was something on her boat she was missing, and she was like 2.5. And so that's, I guess, a part of her story, her identity now. That in her past life, she was like some guy who had a boat. She really loved it, and then she died, and she missed her boat for a while, and then she got used to being here, and she forgot about it.
Wow. I can't I don't know, just being, a never end.
Mhm.
Now I was raised in a very fundamental religion, like
Okay.
Maryland.
Okay.
Maryland and I have a lot of common.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, so I was raised in a very fundamental religion, so,
Mhm.
uh, where kids are to be seen and not heard.
Mhm.
So it's even hard for me to use my imagination to imagine that, you're an adult already in a small body, and you're expected to do, all the adult things, and we were children, and we were to be seen and not heard.
Right.
That
Right.
is such difference. It
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I could see it being such a difference. I think about heaven in that instance, like, were you taught about another place you might go in the afterlife and how you'd have a
Yes.
whole existence there, and in a way, that kinda becomes a part of your, like, identity because it's a not you in particular, but I kinda feel like
Yeah, no,
they're correlated, this, like, sort of
they are.
afterlife identity and experience that's a part of your overall ride.
So that no, that's exactly right. We're taught, you, are gonna go to heaven or you're gonna go to hell.
Right.
And my faith is deep, my faith is strong, I mean, that's m the I'm not religious by any
Mhm.
means, but I am spiritual,
Mhm.
and and I believe that there's goodness and there's evil.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's the yin and the yang. I guess that's
Right.
just me. But,
Mm. That's
yeah,
interesting.
we were always taught you're either gonna go to heaven or you're gonna go to hell,
Mhm.
and being raised with fear of going to hell and burning for the rest of your entire existence
Right.
makes a child um, little scared, raised in fear.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
sure.
so
And they're so upfront about it too. Like you just said,
oh,
raised in fear.
absolutely,
It's like, wow. Yeah.
absolutely, and see, but when you were being raised, you were being taught that you were already an adult, correct?
Yeah, and our sort of raised with fear was a little different, it was, a bit more like, "This is the only lifetime." Like, "You came back to this you were born into a Scientology family now, like, this is the lifetime that matters because if we don't, turn Earth around, this ship is doomed." So, the hell, I guess you could call it, or heaven
Mhm,
aspect was really just future lives. Right? Like,
okay.
it's like your future lives are going to be totally ruined unless you spend this lifetime clearing the planet. And
So
there
there is
and
crossover.
what?
There is crossover there,
Yes,
similarities.
absolutely, yeah. A lot of
Absolutely.
people don't think about Scientology as a doomsday cult, and in a lot of ways it's not, but they
Mm,
really do have, this, like, really high pressure thing going on, this sort of they're, like, fighting this big conspiracy to take over the world, like, they believe that psychiatrists are essentially drugging and enslaving the population, and we're at a tipping point, and Scientology is the only thing that can fix it, and so this lifetime is like that. It's gonna sway one way or another, and then we're done for. So,
okay.
yeah, that's a lot of the recruitment to get, especially generational Scientologists to sign their lives away to work for Scientology because it's this knowledge that you understand that from a small child. You have that.
Very interesting,
Yeah,
very
there's like the expectation that it's coming. Winter is
it's
coming.
coming. Well, see, that's the same thing. When's the rapture coming?
Mhm.
That's what we have to fear, you're either you're gonna die, and you're going to go to heaven or hell
Right,
forever. You don't come back or anything like
right,
that. You're gonna die, or the skies are gonna part, and you're gonna go to
mhm,
heaven or hell.
right.
I mean, so yeah, it's
So much pressure in what you do right now, every little
and I
thing.
work in mental health.
Right, right. Exactly.
So, okay. So now, um, when you met your husband, I know your story. Y'all weren't married at the time, right? But
Right.
now you are. Okay.
Mhm.
So, how many children do y'all have?
2. Yep,
2?
we've got the oldest one who just turned 18 this last
I
week,
know.
and then a 10-year-old. Mhm.
Yes. And so how okay, let me ask this. I'm gonna ask you this way. Were your kids raised in any form of Scientology?
No,
No.
no.
You kept
I
that
got
away from
them
them.
out, yeah.
Good.
I was still a little bit under the radar, but definitely shielded the older one from ever, yeah, being exposed. I mean, I suppose my mom probably taught him a couple things, but he never set foot into like a church.
Right, right. And how did being raised the way that you were raised, change your parenting, or did it change your parent the way that you decided to parent your children and the
Yeah.
attachment to your children?
Yeah. Um, I don't feel like I would have been prepared at all to be a parent unless I had chosen the field of education to go into, like,
Mhm.
professionally. Um, because looking back, there was so much I didn't know. I didn't know about attachment theory. That's mental health. That's psychiatry.
Mhm.
That's not allowed.
Yeah.
Um, and the solutions that I would have been given, or, like your child's crying, they won't stop crying. Oh, they need a locational, or they need an assist, or in some cases, like those are Scientology solutions, right? If that
Right,
wasn't
right,
clear.
no, yeah.
Um, and honestly, those would have been the only tools in my tool belt, right? Like, think about, because it's not just my mom, it's like my mom's mom was.
Mhm.
So as far as mothering goes, it is like Scientology. In fact, I'm working on a book now, and the first chapter confession is like Scientology is in my maternal DNA because it
Generational.
shapes how you think of the baby. Like so even these very close interactions between mother and child are essentially shaped by Scientology in this weird way, right? Because it's your belief,
Right,
right? And that's true for probably all religions. Whatever your belief of your relationship to this child, which, it blows your mind anyway. Like, I don't tell me one mother who doesn't look at their newborn child and just be like, "What the heck?" It's it's a very awe-inspiring experience, but I guess my whole point is that I got Scientology out of that first, that one-on-one, right? Like, relationship. I didn't apply Scientology to fix his problems. I found, like, real world solutions, if that makes sense. But I had a
right.
like, the well of information I
Yeah,
didn't
so when you
know.
were pregnant with your first child,
Yeah, go ahead.
when you were pregnant with your first son, okay, when you were pregnant
Mhm,
with him, and is there a difference in being you were still in Scientology when you were pregnant with him, correct?
mhm, mhm. Well, I was under the radar, but yes.
Okay, it was under the radar, but okay. Did you have to go through the silent birth?
No, I did not go through a silent birth. However,
Uh,
um, my mom was my support at the birth, and unfortunately, she did actually, like, shush my husband, and that was
Ooh,
very upset when he was, um, like, next to me saying
yeah,
encouraging me or whatever. And I think that rift was never healed.
probably
Um,
not.
yeah. So there wasn't, like, a conscious expectation put on me where it's like, "You're gonna be quiet," but there was this sort of, like, going around behind the scenes to, like, make sure that the midwife knew and sort of to appease my mom, who happened to be my number 1 support person. With our 2nd child, it was just us. It was just the 2 of us, and I totally different experience. But with the first one, I felt like I wanted and needed that extra support. It just kinda
Well,
came
absolutely.
in a weird way.
I mean, it's your mother.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And
I
so
mean,
while I was
it's your
under
mother.
the radar, it wasn't being practiced on me. In her mind, because again, the stakes are really, really high. You don't just have a silent birth because, like, "Oh, we'll just be quiet." You have a silent birth because anything that is said in the process of labor and delivery and that, like, immediate time after
Mhm.
will be this is Scientology. Again, I'm not saying that I
No.
believe it. But the belief is anything said will be recorded into their subconscious mind and will trigger later in life, harming them with, like, illness, injury, disease, whatever. To the point where little examples, like, a doctor's delivering a child and the doctor says, "Oh, I can't see. I can't quite see." Like, they're looking for, I don't know what, I can't see. That is
Yeah.
recorded into the child, and now they're gonna be born and develop nearsightedness.
Wow.
Like, very specific, very literal,
Very
and
literal. Mhm.
so much pressure. If you read Dianetics, the examples are, like, just like that, like, very not just life or death, but, like, beyond whatever that pressure is. And so I've always found that actually Dianetics weaponizes, or Scientology weaponizes, a mother's love in a lot of ways, because so say you do say something, and then
Mhm.
the child later on has a problem. You're a Scientologist, so all you can do is send them to the Scientology church, org, whatever, pay for their stuff, and what are they gonna find out? They're gonna find out that you did
You
something.
did it.
So
So there you go.
yeah, and then, of course, there's only a few solutions, which is, like, handle or disconnect. So you either pay more and do more Scientology to fix it,
Wow.
or you disconnect. I don't know. I know we're, like, going down a rabbit hole here, but I'm just trying to,
No,
like,
no, it's good to know.
it's the stakes are so high. So when people talk about this silent birth, it's like, from my mother's perspective, like,
Mhm.
she's shushing my husband, like, for his benefit, right? Like, in
Right.
her mind, or she's going around and telling the doctors different things, to help me, right? Like, to
I
save me.
understand that. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, Mandy, this she's here. Hi, welcome back.
Hey,
That's one
Mandy.
of our mods. It's Mandy. Scientology got their silent birth from Japan, but in Japan, it's not a traumatic thing. Scientology took pieces and then dialed up torture.
Yeah,
So,
that
what
makes
are your
sense.
thoughts on that?
Well, actually, I hate to defend L. Ron Hubbard, but I will say that during the time that he came out with the silent birth idea, birth was, like, pretty hardcore. I think it was in response to some of the twilight birth, which is where
Right.
they, like, strap you down and, like, inject you with this amnesia stuff, and, like, you wake up, you got a
And then
baby, you don't know what it is.
they push the
Yeah.
baby. You're
Yeah, it's and also forceps, and as also, there is, like, a brutality in my mind to, a lot of the medical procedures that don't let a birth naturally conclude. A lot of times they just pick a date, and of course, there's reasons for that in certain circumstances, but
more
I
than
think
not.
that's the machine he was sort of
It
pushing
is.
back against. And so I will admit, again, I was under the radar. Like, I did have a drug-free birth.
Yeah.
Um, I did need medical intervention at the after of both of my children's births, so I'm glad that I was in a hospital.
Oh,
But
wow.
I chose a hospital clear across the city because you could deliver, and recover in the same room, and they had low lighting, and they had this philosophy there where, they had low intervention rates, and they would let you go longer. Anyway, long story, it's all a machine. So I don't
But
wanna
no, I
defend
understand what you're
him, but I like, probably I'd look into the Japanese method, or whatever the right words are, a bit more, because there is something about a calm,
absolutely.
birth, that an environment that the baby can come into where you're not, like, getting grabbed by your head and lights shown at you, and,
No,
so
and I think it's what what because if the mother's calm, and me being a paramedic and doing my
right.
very multiple years, I understand that. And now they have the skin the skin time, like, as soon as the baby's born. So that's
Yes.
an attachment,
Yes,
and I
exactly. Where they've gotta
which
get
is
them on there, and some places leave the umbilical cord, they clamp it further apart,
mhm,
to for a certain number of hours. Like, there's a lot of little, yeah, little things, and again, because I was sort of under the radar, I think I was leaning toward that sort of calm, quiet birth, and I didn't
mhm.
really know how to advocate for it, but most of it agreed. Like, my mom, like, mostly agreed with most of it. She just took it kinda one step further for the silent part. Um,
But
yeah, it
the
was
calmness.
yeah, so it was a strange little bit to navigate. Yeah, what about
So,
you?
no, but you're here, and
Yeah,
you have 2 incredible children, or grown
thank
one. One's grown,
thank you.
and I can't even say that.
I know, I
He's
can't
so
either. It's very strange. Yeah.
So
Um,
parenting, when you brought them home, let's just say, okay, now you're out, you've had your second son,
mhm,
and now you're parenting on your own with no help.
mhm,
And I know that I've watched many of your, I've watched and read and everything in between about, you being out on your own without the women that were very
mhm.
strong presence in you,
Yeah.
that part of you. How did you handle that?
Well, I actually had most of those connections for the first kid, and so I got a taste of that.
That's good.
Um, the second one, I mean, I have to say, I really have to give props to my husband's family, because with my oldest, we were more around my family just because geographically that's where we were. Um, and then when the second one, when he was about 2, we moved back up north, closer to the city where all of his family lives. And, like, they didn't miss a beat. I mean, they never missed a beat, but, they I got to have the comparison, really, I guess I could say, and, that model really, really helped me get through and helped me push on with the second one, even though I didn't have all those, like, other women in my life. Um, I had this other family, which I'm so incredibly grateful for, and in a lot of ways, I got to see them, like, providing a type of relationship that I didn't even ever get before, but I
Right.
didn't know what I was missing.
Mm,
So, um, yeah, I feel like they both have really rich, in, like, engaging extended family, but there's a warmth, I guess I could say it, a non-contractual warmth that exists on my husband's side of the family that I didn't know I was missing. I didn't know it was like that for other people.
okay, and I understand. I do understand that.
Yeah.
Mandy, yes, to them, they don't want it to be chaotic for the child to come into the world, which is the same theory for water birth too, right? Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Nope.
I'll
That's
definitely
cool,
find that out.
Mandy.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, my
definitely.
first child was born in Portland, Oregon in 2006, and Portland was voted, like, by Parenting Magazine or something, the best city to have a child in, a baby to give birth in, because the
Mhm.
options were really amazing. Like, I could have a midwife deliver at the hospital, which was really cool.
Um,
Okay.
so yeah, we're gonna get to questions in just a minute. Hang on, John. I'm gonna
Mhm.
what did yeah, just one sec, John. Um, sorry about that. I was
You're fine.
I I have ADHD and I've had to come off my medication.
Oh,
So now it's
you're good.
learning a whole new way of thinking and thoughts, and
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna do it, though. I'm doing it one day at a
You're
time.
doing great.
So, okay, going now, you've got these to compare to. There's Gretchen. There's Gretchen. So you've got
Oh,
these. You have those to compare to. You have the Scientology parenting side, and then you have your husband's parenting side, which you
hi.
didn't know, you weren't aware of. So, did that change the way that, or evolve into a change the way that you parented after that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess it's hard to pinpoint because being a 23-year-old parent and being like a 31-year-old parent, I was just a totally different person to begin with. Um, but yeah, I've learned a lot, and it's helped me cope, I think, with the loss, really, truly, of that side of of all those female people I had in my life before. Um, not everybody's, I guess, lucky enough to have something else to, like, another family, like, waiting in the wings.
But they're there, and then I'm
But they're
so
there
glad
and
that you
super
got.
supportive. My husband's grandma was one of the first people to buy my book when it came out and read it and message me and just be like, "I read your book." And it's not really her vibe either, I mean,
That's
it is,
that's
but she
great.
was doing it for me, so it's
No,
nice.
that's really great because that's like, well, I don't know. I can't tell what number I was, but yeah, as soon as it hit Amazon, I
Oh,
was like in the mail.
yeah, I love it. That's so
But
nice.
I was so enjoying when you were reading it because I love to hear it coming from your your voice. Like, now I
Oh,
have to try
yeah.
to
I gotta do that
Oh,
again.
I'm
Some
sorry, I
that
had critical lightning alert, sorry.
Oh.
That scares me to death every time.
Oh,
Gretchen, I
goodness.
can't hear you.
Hi,
Can't hear you.
Gretchen.
And
Is that
you're
better?
muted. That's better. I can hear you.
You can hear me? Well, that one might help if I did that. Okay. I was going to ask you if you did a recording of your book, like if you did a voice, like for an audiobook.
I haven't done, like, a whole audiobook. I read a couple chapters out loud, but I'll get there. I know so many people, myself included, prefer listening to books.
Mhm.
So,
I
yeah.
loved being in her little thing where she was reading chapters of her book, and I was, like, soaking it up because I've already read her book, but it's so different coming from, like, her voice.
Right.
And
That's
your
encouraging.
point.
Thank you.
I mean, it really truly is. It truly is. It's a whole different take. You can read it and imagine, but when you're putting the emphasis on the words you that are important to you or meant something, you have
Yeah.
that was it was incredible.
Bring the sass.
I loved it. The redhead.
Oh, that's so encouraging. Thank you. Makes me wanna get back at it.
Oh, yes. Second book, waiting.
And Keilah's going to beat out Grandma for number one.
Yeah, right? I love it. That's the best feeling an author could ever have. So
Yes, I do. I love it. But Gretchen, I know you want some questions, so I'm going to be quiet. I'm just trying to make sure
No,
everything's quiet on my
well,
phone here.
and I apologize. Keelah will tell you, the last couple of days have been kind of a blur for me. So I apologize up
you're
front
fine.
here because of my time zone, I for some reason thought it was a
She's in your
different.
time zone.
Yeah, but I for some reason anyway, that's
You're
neither
fine.
here nor there, but I'm here. I'm sorry that I'm late. No, when I thought about kind of talking with you and your experience, and I mean, you've went through a lot, obviously, but kind of really thinking about um, attachment. And I know
Mhm.
you're in the field of social work, right?
Early childhood education.
Early childhood education. Okay, MS. You're
No, I'm
SC.
no
No,
numbers. Nope,
no,
I
you're
have a
no numbers.
bachelor's.
Well, you got
Yeah,
your
numbers,
master's.
letters. I
You
do
got
know
your
the
master's.
difference.
Yeah.
J
So
I have a
early.
bachelor's.
Okay, we have master's. Got it. So early childhood development, and so this is actually especially kind of, I guess, in the same line of what you
Mhm,
um, that area, but like attachment and early childhood attachment and how that affects not only like our adult relationships, right? Like our romantic relationships or friendships or other relationships, but also I was thinking in terms of parenting,
mhm,
as we're talking about parenting and what that looks like. And I know I just caught the tail end of when I came on is talking about how Scientology looks at children not as children.
mhm,
And that in of itself totally throws the idea of like early childhood attachment
mhm.
out the window in my
Right,
eyes, because it's like, well, you've lived billions or how many, hundreds or thousands of years in the past. You don't that like that's there's no emphasis on that, I would imagine, at all. And
right.
then, how do you develop, because that's so important, as you know, with early childhood, just that attachment, that bond,
Mhm,
um, and then how do you create that as you become a parent? Basically, how do
mhm,
you kind of um, change the direction? Because
mhm.
like you're thinking about your experiences in Scientology, growing up in it, and then how does that frame kind of what, and how do
Mhm.
you like we've talked, I think a lot of the um, people on their channels, ex-Scientologists, talk about like kind of unlearning stuff, like
Yeah.
unlearning and realizing there's like a different world out there. So that must be something to even just decide, like, hey, with your partner, like, I want to start a family and I want to do this, and what that looks like. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, as far as, like, one of the very first things I learned when I did expose myself to outside thinking, right? Like, the first time I took a community college class, I was 15, intro to child development. One of the first things we learned about is the idea of an age appropriate expectation, or this concept of age appropriate, right?
Yes.
Like the expectations you're going to put on, you know this, but for the people watching, like the expectations you're going to put on a 2-year-old and hold them to, and their consequences are going to be totally different than a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old or a 20-year-old. And that was one of the very first things I learned. And because I was under the radar, like so many aspects of Scientology I had sort of thrown away, there was something about that concept of age appropriate that it does just nullify so much of Scientology's approach to children. And so to have one single concept be introduced to me so early on and make such an impact on me, I became like, I had to know more. And so I think that my approach when it came to like having my children is I knew that I just didn't know. I knew that everything I had been taught and probably everything done to me was like clinically like inappropriate.
Right.
And that was hard to learn. You know, I definitely wrote a few, like, because I got my associate's 2-year degree before I got pregnant. So I had 2 entire years of interacting with like normal people and and you know how it is. I mean, I got called out. I got questioned quite a few times on some of the things that I brought to the group. Like, well, why do you think that? Like, well,
Well,
let me
I
tell
tell
you.
you.
Yeah. So I guess my whole point is that I was like really, really consciously open to trying to find out, like to figure out what I didn't know, to try and make it, I don't know. I guess at first I was trying to just make it different. Like I was just rejecting everything that had happened to me and just like not going to do that. But as I evolved, you realize you also kind of become we all become our mothers if we're not careful.
Oh, I know. I know.
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, that it was just like, really, it was just very easy for me to see that I needed help. So I sought out help in trying to, I mean, because it's all early childhood education. A lot of it comes from the field of mental health. Like there's a lot of
Right.
crossover in these like sciences of behavior, sciences of even some developmental stages, family structure. So all of that was forbidden knowledge for me. So while some people going into this, you know, community college had a regular education where they'd been exposed to this stuff, I never had.
Mhm.
So
You're like a
if that makes sense.
sponge. It's just
Yeah. And so realizing that, I was just like, oh boy, I got to use this because otherwise I'll screw it up. Which I may have.
So,
We all may
well,
have.
and it makes me think about this in terms of, in a way, it's kind of like a blank slate, like you said, Keilah,
Yes.
sponge, like kind of absorbing and being open to it, which is great. I think being open and receptive to what you're learning.
Right.
I'm wondering too, sometimes there's a dynamic within families,
Mhm.
is like a parent, wants to have their independent kind of, for lack of a better word, control or just kind of onus over their parenting of their children.
Mhm.
And like, family might give their input and then it's like,
Mhm.
like stay in your lane kind of that. Sometimes, I'm not saying everyone,
Right.
sometimes, but it sounds like you have a good support system on your partner side. So is it, were you receptive to that as well? Like grandma, comes in and says, oh,
Mhm.
this, or, relatives, giving some input, granted
Mhm.
that they're, good, hopefully good input, but um, in terms of like, I'm asking, did you get
Mhm.
feedback from other sources and things like that helped you along the way to kind of
Yes,
form that?
for sure. Um, I mean, my mom has a lot of strengths. I don't want to like throw her under the bus here or anything. Um, the strengths of my husband's mother are very, very different. So, for example, my husband's mother lived in the same, town. I mean, at six weeks maybe, she was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for an overnight with the baby. Like and I was just like, wait, what? You just like, I've waited long enough. I want this baby. I love this baby. I need to snuggle this baby. Give me the baby. And I didn't really have a lot of that. And so that was super fun to be able to like trust somebody. I mean, I didn't get any sleep. I had a hard time that first night. But again, being in our 20s, once I did start to like really trust that relationship, I mean, being a parent in your 20s and being able to have a weekend to sleep or is priceless, right? With somebody that you
Right.
actually can sleep because they know your baby, they trust your baby, they love your baby. I mean, I hate to admit this, but I just never really had that with my own mother. Again, she has so many strengths, and I don't want to throw her under the bus with this. It's just that I never felt that that a baby would be responded to in the way that I felt formed secure attachment, right? Like I wanted to know that if my baby cried, somebody who was caring for him would pick him up, would
Right.
snuggle him, would communicate with him, would, kiss his little cheeks and check all his stuff and rock him. And again, that's sort of my preference and parenting style. I'm not comfortable with a lot more of the like a little bit of the tougher love. And as an infant, that's just not what I prefer. Like, I'm not comfortable with that, I guess, is my point. To each their own. But so I guess my whole point is that taught me so much, right? And like now I know what kind of grandma I want to be. I'm the like, give me the baby, give me the like, you know what I mean?
But that's amazing.
Yeah, and so it's just learning like
Yeah.
new ways to be. I don't know everything that happened to me as a very young child. I know that some of these practices in Scientology applied to really, really young children, I think are really dangerous. Mostly this sort of cold, unresponsive, like figure it out, make it go right. You're a big being in a little body. Just stop crying. Like everything's fine.
The
That's
no
just what I
comfort.
am.
Just let them lay there and cry
I
and
mean,
figure it
yeah, it's not that everybody. I don't want to like paint Scientology parents out to be this like cold. A lot of them are really great, and they've got grandmothers that showed them how to
Yeah.
do things, right? But the fact that there's even an option in Scientology culture to just give your child an R factor. In fact, I think Jenna Miscavige spoke about this not that long ago in one of her videos where she had, what did she have? Some kind of chronic thing. And eventually her parents were just like, if you have to go to the doctor one more time for this, like
Yes.
it's going to be really bad or whatever. And she was like, I just
Yeah.
stopped. But really,
Yeah.
she just never talked about it again. She just dealt with it. So
Yes.
it's kind of stuff like that where I think very early on, there's like these sort of like you can use your intention. If you're like a really good Scientologist, you can like get to tone 40, this like true intention, and you can just communicate to this baby that like they're gonna stop crying. And it's not like a mean thing, but it's just like a certain type of response. And
Not the
I think
loving, caring, let me hold you and comfort you and
yeah. But then again, I also am a big believer in like carrying your, the baby wearing and the skin to skin, and not everybody
yes.
has that same, approach or values the same things I do. Of course I recognize that. I don't expect you all to.
But
No, I mean,
there is, I mean, I don't remember. I'm going to totally botch this, but learning way back. I mean, I won't date myself, but like a long time when I was an undergrad, we learned about, because I was undergrad in psychology. There's a study about monkeys. Now, monkeys and humans are different, but there's a lot of experiments done and different. And what they did was little baby, I think it was monkeys. They gave them they deprived them of something. So sometimes they would one group they would deprive of like their bottle with milk or whatever their sustenance was, and another one they had this little like furry, like almost like a stuffed animal that they could kind of cuddle with. And the failure to thrive ones were not the ones that were deprived of the milk. It was the ones that were deprived of the ones that could cuddle with and have that nurturance.
Yeah.
And that's really, I mean, when I heard that before, I mean, I'm very totally like making it totally basic, like the study. There's a lot more to it, but it's like, wow, like what you're saying is completely right on. We need that on a physiological level. Our bodies need
Mhm.
that connection, you know.
Yeah.
If you put a baby, that, what was it? I don't know if you've learned this too. Like if you put a baby on the mother's stomach,
The skin to
they'll-
skin, that's what Liz and I were talking
they
about.
can
Like,
smell.
yeah,
They know the smell of the mother. Like they know, you
yeah.
know, and they'll
Mhm.
even move towards like the nipple or, you know, something. I
Mhm.
mean, I think there's something to that. Like there's, you
Mhm.
know, they know the scent, they know the closeness, they know
Yeah.
the.
Yeah. And I would even take that one step further in sort of my thinking that like there's probably something that's happening with the mother as well that's signifying to her body like we're moving now out of pregnancy into, you know, you get your colostrum, your first milk, and then you're going to get your rich milk. Like there's so much the signs that tell, like as a mom or, you know, like that move you on to the next cycle. I feel like those cues come back and forth from that interaction. So yeah, I mean, I would imagine that the science of what's really happening there when, you know, skin to skin is
Mhm.
like brain synapses just firing and so
I
much
I can s absolutely,
invisible.
and the attachment, that everything
Yeah.
going on, the mother, the baby, and it
Yep.
without even knowing.
Exactly.
Well, and that when the mother or the parent looks in their baby's eyes, it's
Yeah.
like that oxytocin, that
Yes.
chemical release of
Yeah.
attachment chemical that I
Mhm.
think on both sides, right? On the baby and the parent, the mother.
I would assume so, yeah. And that's also again that like all these early things. Again, I never knew this in Scientology, but some of these really simple ideas about like trust, you know, that early is one of the early stages as humans. We're going to learn if we can trust the people around us. We're going to cry or whatever. And how they respond to us ends up forming so much of our identity, like whether we like it or not. Um, so, you know, a baby cries and somebody comes and tells them like, quit crying. That's going to be a different experience than somebody being like, oh, what's going on with you? And nurturing or whatever. And I don't want to paint all Scientologists into some sort of
Yeah.
cold-hearted light. Like
Mhm.
the urge of being a mother, I think, goes beyond all indoctrination. I think there is a way for the true love to shine through. I have to believe that.
I do believe that. Sophia says, I think it's called familial smell.
It's
Mm-hmm.
possible, yeah. I think there is
Yeah.
something about the scent and the connection there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're right. I like that you made the distinction, Liz, is that, you know, we can't do a broad brush paint stroke over all of Scientology and say everyone has this experience or everyone, you
Right.
know, was given up to the cadet org or something as
Right.
children and that's all their experience. I mean, there's plenty of public Scientologists that, you know, have different experiences or other Scientologists that, like you said, potentially, you know, would have, and the kids would have different experiences. However, I think if they really adhere to some of the teachings,
Yes.
then there is a certain manner in which things are just not even to be able to express emotion and not, you know, the idea of suppressing that and what's so natural for, and as kids grow up needing to, and I just think about my son, I'm sure with your kids, it's like they wake up in the middle of the night and they have a stomach ache. I don't tell them to go back to bed. I don't tell my son to go back to bed. It's like, what's wrong? You know, can I get you something? Glass of water, you know, a
Mm-hmm.
headache, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, and
Liz, I'm sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I
Sorry.
was going to ask. So when Liz, when your sons were growing up, did you find that you maybe or may not have been? I don't know, but went because of the way you know, boarding school, nannies. I mean, you still had your grandmother, your mother, but I'm just saying that you were what we were talking about earlier. Did you find yourself swinging that pendulum way to the other side, maybe or not, with when you were bringing your sons up, or did that have an effect on it at all?
I mean, I suppose because, well, it's how do I answer that? That's tricky. Um, so I okay. I think
I mean, it'll trick you.
yeah, no, it's fine. I think it's it's a great question. I'm trying to okay, so from someone who doesn't necessarily have my experience, if they're looking at a preschool, they might see like, oh, it's a cute place where kids go, and they keep them alive while they're there until their parents are off of work. When I'm looking at a preschool, or like a high quality, child place, I'm seeing so many wheels, right? Like they're painting a picture, and I'm seeing fine motor development. I'm seeing open-ended and creative, language, pre-literacy, all these different things. So I was able to get away with living in both worlds for a really long time when it comes to my son, because people who in Scientology just saw, oh, you work at a preschool, there's families around, and whatever, your son visits and that's your life, and how cute. And you don't talk bad about Scientology, so everything's fine. What they don't know is that teaching in that world and being in that world was just furthering my education in psychiatry and mental health, and
Psychiatry.
exposing me and
The
solidifying
devil's
me
workshop.
in that. So I don't know. I guess I got off base, because maybe you can ask me a
No,
question
that's
again.
that's right. No,
My brain
no.
froze.
You answered it. You answered it perfectly. I mean, perfectly. Yes, I
Right.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so this is the thing that's really interesting to me, that I'm really, really trying to nail down, is the invisible culture of raising your child in Scientology. Like what this comment says here. So Reese's dad wrote in her baby book that she had good confront as a newborn, right? That's him going off, learning Scientology, thinking of it as science, and then coming home and applying it to his baby daughter. But she's never done Scientology. She's just a baby. But by the time she's ready to, quote, do Scientology, when she's 6 or 8, she's going to have had all this indoctrination and not even know it, because it's just how it is. Babies have confront. They've got good or bad confront. Babies can have bad confront. What does that mean? That means that you have a spirit who's not living up to their potential already as a baby, right?
Wow.
So it can go either way. You can have good confront, but like, what if a baby's not making eye contact with somebody? Maybe, oh, they've got bad confront. Like, no, we know there's probably a neurological something going on that we should probably look into if a baby is not making I'm not a baby, an infant, but at some point, sometimes parents notice that their children are not making eye contact with them consistently. And that is, if you could, as a Scientologist, be like, oh, they've got bad confront, they got to go do more Scientology. Or you can approach it from a different stance and be like, maybe I should talk to his pediatrician, and maybe we should see what's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and Reese's baby book is no, I'm glad, because you're exactly right. Reese's dad, her whole entire baby book, I don't know if you've seen her when she's read through her baby book. Yeah, it's all about him and his Scientology.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing about being a baby, like which you and I would write in a baby book, or and Gretchen, like, oh, you took your first steps. You took, no, but everything was about him and what he was succeeding in Scientology.
Right.
And I was unbelievable. That's the first time I'd been exposed to hearing that depth of it. I was like, wow. Yeah. And so, I understand where it's coming from about saying that. But
well, another thing, I just,
38 years.
In addition to, Liz, what you were saying about him directly applying some of the teachings right as soon as she's born, as we know about parent-child interaction, starting from a very young age, emotion expressions that are on or not on a parent's face, like that mirroring, right? Yes. That happens, or that being receptive. So if all I'm getting as a baby is just a very blank stare, that's going to affect, from little on, how I'm going to or not going to, express emotion or see emotion.
Exactly.
Because there's a lack thereof, right? Because it's like, then you're reactive mind. So I could see that as being it's not just that she's in isolation and she's born. I mean, now we know, like, there's that parent-child interaction that's at play, and that's that can
Mhm.
affect things very from little on.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then she didn't have her mom, so she was sent off to Edward.
Yeah. My mother is particularly hardcore as well. She's a true
Right.
believer. And again, weaponizing a mother's love. If you are a true hardcore believer, then you're going to do these things extremely strictly regimented. You're going to make sure your children understand all the ideas of Scientology before they go to kindergarten because you're helping them. That is right. Like, so the more devoted, the more indoctrination that child gets for their best interest.
And Liz, you saying that, okay, so all of you're the third generation in your family.
Mhm.
Reese was second generation, but it's amazing to me how now Reese kept her son totally away from
Mhm.
Scientology. You've kept your kids away from Scientology. Um,
Mhm.
I just wonder where I don't know how to ask this question that without it, but just like it's like now. I don't know. Maybe it had been being done, and it's just all the voices are now coming forward. But this
Mhm.
is just seems to be the theme of the second and third gens. Their children are not. No, you're not putting my children in Scientology.
Mhm.
And I just wonder. I don't know. Maybe is there something to that?
I would assume so. Yeah. I mean, okay, well, a couple things. I think we have to acknowledge that some parents apply Scientology to their children and parenting in different ways at different extreme levels than others. And I think the more time that someone has had like exposed to other cultures, or if maybe they have another big family that has another religion that even though they're not a part
Mhm.
of, they've seen another way of life. um or maybe they just got some message in life about what a mother is. So I guess my whole point is, if you kind of skirted through Scientology and it wasn't like really done to you at an early age, it might take another generation to get to where we're at, right? Because it started out kind of slow. Then you got a whole nother generation that's totally in it. And then the next one gets the brunt of it and kind of grows up and goes, I don't like this. Um, so for Reese and I in particular, I mean, it probably wouldn't have even taken a third generation if my grandmother hadn't have been in it, because like her, it's like this really heavy, deep indoctrination that for whatever reason, both of us knew in our heart of hearts, we would not allow to be done to our children. I don't know why. I don't know why there's like a rebellious little bit in me, or why I got out and the rest of my family's in, or why Reese, I mean, well, Reese got a little bit doxed out, but who knows
Yeah.
if she could have gotten out.
But she still didn't let Hux go anywhere
Yeah.
near it.
And that's the piece I'd like to find out at some point. What is
It-
that?
I guess that's what is that. That was my
Mhm.
question. Yeah, there's
I don't
something
There's
know.
to that.
there's another question as you were saying, and I again appreciate you saying that there's a range of experiences with,
Yes.
and that's the case of any kind of organization or,
Right.
I mean, this we're talking about Scientology, the cult, but like you can talk about other types of mindsets that people get really just so orthodox into and so strict, or they are like loosely apply it. But I'm
Mhm.
wondering too, I think the way that Scientology seems to, I mean, they have the personality test to recruit and things like that, but they seem to have these broad, general, like live a better life type of
Mhm.
programs, right? To kind of get people hooked in. And I was watching, somehow I came upon a video on YouTube about someone talking about their Scientology experience and how wonderful it's been for them. And there's plenty of, right, those videos too.
Yeah.
And they talk about, how it's helped their marriage or how it's parenting. So that's my question. Is there a, let's say, a course or something where they talk about um, how to improve your parenting, like to get people
For
involved?
sure. For sure.
And I'm curious, because of how they think about children. I would just be curious, not that you have to speak to this, but how um, what that looks like, and you know what I'm saying? Because there's something, I'm wondering if you know anything about that part of it, in terms of, is there anything that they're teaching about parenting that you'd say, oh, that's actually like there's a little bit of a little piece of a bigger picture, but a tiny piece. It's like, oh, that actually is pretty positive. Is there anything? And
Yeah,
I don't know
there
if
are.
I'm going to get in trouble for asking that question, but
No,
I do.
no.
Sometimes there are certain aspects where you're like, okay, there's in that
Yeah.
whole big course,
Mhm.
there's a lot of other stuff, but there's like a little piece that grabs you, and you're like, okay, that seems about right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, two things. One, I have to say that I am proud of my recovery, whatever you want to call it, because I have gotten to a point now where I can see and acknowledge some of the things that were positive and some things that I still believe that I was first introduced to through
Right.
Scientology. That said, there are introductory courses. Okay, I'm going to back up. You see the guy standing up, giving out a free personality test on the street. That was my job for a little while.
Mhm.
So what they're going to do is they're going to get you into the building, into the special new person area. You're not going to have any pictures on the wall about reincarnation or anything, the Sea Org, nothing. That's all upstairs, right? You have to go, there's a whole intro. And that personality test is going to rate you on a number of areas of your life. Statistically, you are going to be lower in certain areas, right? Could be money, parenting, relationships, communication. I forget all of them. So there's a course paralleling those. It's an introductory course, and it's a bunch of BS, really, because it's this fluffy sort of, I don't know if we can say it, what is it, like watered down, like treat your children with respect. Like L. Ron Hubbard wrote things like children are not dogs. They should not be trained as dogs. And like maybe in 1950, that was pretty progressive. I'm not really sure.
Right.
But they still have like that little segment in the course, right? Because they can't really change everything, but they can use little bits. It's like, I agree. Children are not dogs. Children should
Right.
not be raised like dogs.
Yeah.
And I know you're talking about more meaningful
No,
things like
I'm
that.
just laughing because that you're
No,
right.
well, look, I mean, that's what I got when I went to Austin. It's like someone handed me one. I said, "Sure, I'll take it."
Yes, exactly. And that's their statistic. Like how many
Yeah.
bodies, they literally will refer to people as bodies they can get
No, I
in
did
to
not go
watch
in
that
there.
film is their statistic. And why they might be so desperate to get you in there. Like, who cares? It's a movie. It's like, well, actually their pay or their ability to, that staff member's ability to see their brother that they haven't seen in 2 years on Sunday all depends on how many people they can get to watch that film. So the stakes are high for everybody. But anyway, I hope that answers your question. I do.
Yeah.
Actually, can I add one thing? I will also say that a good con, like a true con, has to have an element of truth, right?
Right.
So to kind of hook you in, because if you just took those introductory classes and they were like Xenu this and past life this, you'd be like, I'm
Right.
out. There has to be a slow boiling of the frog. You have to gain some trust so that
Yes.
you have some skin in the game, so that when they push back and say, well, now you want to do the next one and the next one and the next one, you have to be coming off a little bit of a positive high. So from my understanding, L. Ron Hubbard plagiarized. He had the ability to take some Eastern like philosophy and religion, bring it over here and repackage it in a way that was new to people. So I think there are threads for sure throughout it that are worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't, and no one's going to come in and stay in anything if there's not something that's useful or worth
Right.
being there or
Right.
positive. I mean, I'm not going to go walk in a store where I had the worst experience of my life. Everything was just horrible. I'm not going to go back.
Yeah.
So there's got to be that incentive to bring. And so a lot of people lately, a lot of ex-Scientologists actually, I've been hearing say, they're like, they apologize for saying in it. And I said, but there are some good parts. There has to be. That's
Yeah.
just fact. There has to be. I'm not saying go get Scientology, please. That's not where I'm just saying there has
get
to
it.
be that hook to get you in and to
Yep.
keep you in. But that's people coming in. When you're
Right.
born in, you're just like, that's all you know. I mean,
Yeah.
is that a true statement? I mean, would that be an accurate statement?
Yeah. I mean, especially if you
Okay.
also are surrounded by Scientology families, go to Scientology school,
Right.
isolated. Yeah.
Yeah, isolation is a big thing. But you're
Mhm.
right, Liz. I was thinking about what you were just saying about the slow boil. It's like they have to encapsulate as much mainstream kind of ideology
Mhm.
um, to the degree that they feel comfortable,
Mhm.
and then the slow deviation, the slow deviation, the slow
Yep.
deviation, the slow, and then it's like a slippery slope. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I guess I could go along with that.
Right.
Okay, I guess I could go along with that because they're
Mhm.
remembering this stuff behind here, and then all of a sudden there's like they get so far over here, but in
Mhm.
the meantime there's like that little incremental steps of buy-in.
Yeah, for
Essentially.
sure. And I mean that's such a good word too, buy-in, because the price also incrementally increases, right? So it's almost like those introductory courses, they're made so accessible, not offensive, and they're almost like a trailer for this perfect life, right? So say you fall and like financial is where you have the most problems. And so I would come to you and be like, looks like you're really low in this financial. Tell me about your problems. What's going on? Now, my job at that time would be to ruin the person. That's literally the first step on Scientology's bridge, ruin them. And you're doing this to help them so that they can acknowledge their problem and seek Scientology. So, this is why I didn't last very long, honestly, at this job, because it was right down the street from Portland State University. And I don't really enjoy ruining my peers or really anybody. It's like not my thing. Um, and I also was questioning Scientology, so I can't really break someone down and then tell them, "Here's Scientology, it'll fix you." Like
Right.
I was terrible at my job. I'll tell you that.
We're
Um,
glad you were.
yeah,
Yes.
I am glad now too. Um, But each one of those classes is like $50. And then the next course is, maybe 150. And then you're getting up to the 500, 1,000, 10,000, And so again, it's like,
Wow.
it's their way of it's like a little trailer. You're buying this like $75 little, like, we have all the answers for financial. You can learn this and this. And those two things that they teach you are kind of helpful. Like in the finance class, you learn like you can't spend more money than you make. Like, oh, thank you. That's helpful information. I mean, if you want to be solvent, you can't spend more than you make. But that's not Scientology, right? I don't know what that is. But so to kind of capitalize on those things, and then later, all of a sudden, you're referring to money as earth credits and you're taking out second mortgages
Oh,
because
wow.
money doesn't even matter. The only thing that matters is Scientology. So,
Yeah, you have that bait and switch.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, the sucking is a grifter.
I'll put that
Oh,
on your resume.
Sophia, that's a good one. Yes,
There should be
Liz.
like a license plate cover, right?
Yeah.
Something you could
Okay,
get
so
a lot of different taglines there.
Right. No, I
so
literally worked that job 6 months and then I left and I did not fulfill my contract. So when I left, I owed Scientology $4,000. And then I took out my first credit card and I paid it and maxed
you
it out.
paid it.
I sure did. I sure did.
I sure hope everyone that's coming out today knows that none of that is enforceable.
No, of course not. I mean, the thing that was
I'm
enforced, and I knew it wasn't enforceable as a debt, but you can't do any more Scientology courses until it's
oh,
paid.
okay.
So
Gotcha.
as a believer at the time, it was enforceable in a like spiritual
Right.
hostage way. Yes,
Yeah, and
exactly.
that's so strange. So strange because like I think was it Aaron that did the 10%? He was saying like, churches that like I told you the fundamental way, it because we refer to the Bible and it's a 10% tithe,
The
but
tithe, yeah.
but you're not it's not a like you can't come in these doors if you don't pay them. There's such
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, and from what I understand too, I mean, the Catholic and Christian churches in our community, I can actually actively see community engagement and community like
yes.
betterment in the way that they're obviously comfortable doing. Like there's a thrift store that you can donate and they sell, and I don't know what they spend their money on necessarily, but I know there's programs to help all kinds of people around here.
Right,
Um,
right.
and Scientology is supposed to have that. all tax exempt things or,
Oh,
religions
yeah.
we're
I know,
supposed to have
mine's a 501. Yeah, we know.
Mhm.
Yeah, you have to give back to the community or you don't
Right.
get that exempt status.
Right. So they use those campaigns, I think, to like, I don't know. I guess my point is like it's pay to play every step of the way. You gotta pay your donations for your status. Then you can't do your next course until it's paid for. So if I'm done with OT3 and I'm so ready to do OT4, if I don't have whatever it is, $30,000 or whatever, I can't do it. I have to
Mhm.
pay it in full and then I can start.
Wow. Well, I'm so glad that you got to see your son go off. Well, I'm gonna let you tell it. I'm gonna let you tell it because the smile on the mother's face that I saw was amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I am proud. I am really proud. I'm hesitant to
I'm not gonna say.
I'm hesitant to assign too much of my identity, honestly, on my kids. I
Mhm.
think I never want them to like they're a huge part of me, of course, but I want them to be able to like be their own enough and have so that and like know that they're going to make mistakes and make choices that I probably don't understand. Um and so yes, I'm super super proud. But I don't want to take all the credit also. Like my kids are really, really good kids, but it has been an honor to like raise a whole human. That's been really interesting, all the way from like obviously birth to being 18. And then I don't know, it gets into difficult territory because I don't want to say that I'm rewriting anything that puts some sort of really heavy worth on it that it makes me a little uncomfortable. But it's definitely been an honor to advocate for a not cult upbringing and see it through. That's what I can say that I
We have
did.
definitely done a good job.
Thank you.
And I say that sincerely because I know when you went to Los Angeles, you were like, I'm missing basketball games. That right there that says, I mean, just you saying those words spoke more about you as a mother.
Oh,
And I just want coming from the outside, like,
okay, yeah.
coming from a never end, you
Mhm.
just saying those words that I'm gonna miss. I've never missed that this basketball game. That tells more about you as a mother. Just I don't even know how to say it anymore. It
Oh,
really spoke volumes.
thank you. Thank you.
Oh
I
yes,
am. And I hope that you heard
John. Yes.
in between my words today that I really honestly had a community and like one thing I feel like I did really right is that I did ask for help. Like I did
Yes.
let the people who wanted to help me, I did give them a chance to earn that trust and then build from there. And so, like, there are many people that are proud, especially of my older son, because, it all comes back at you when they turn 18. It's like a big
Yes.
assessment period. But
Yeah. Like,
many
thank you,
people.
son. Thank you, son. Thank you, son, for
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that.
Many
Have,
people.
yeah.
And again, like, I think my kid all the time. We live in a small town and, like,
Um,
he can make or break me, honestly. And people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, are you so and so's mom?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then they'll say something like, "Oh, he, did whatever. He volunteers with the basketball and for the little kids and stuff. He was so nice or this or that." And I always go home and I'm like, "Thank you. Thank you for being with me. You're nothing like me at that age. Thank goodness."
So
Liz,
you,
oh, wow.
sorry, you have one son or one child that's 18 and as Keilah says, getting his wings and flying out the coop,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
then your other child is around like what, middle
10.
school or elementary? What's that?
10.
10.
10.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So we
So
still have quite a bit of time to go with this one.
does he like now? Do you think he's going to like being all the attention on him?
Maybe. I think I was doing the math and so we had the oldest one for 8 years by himself, single
Mhm.
kid.
Mhm.
Then we have an overlap and now the youngest will
Hey,
have 8 years. I mean, if up to 18.
no, but
And
that's really neat. That's
so yeah,
really wow. Yeah.
I've worked really hard, I have to say, especially this summer. to try and get as many, well, I guess the last few years, core memories with the two of them, just because of that age difference. I want to make sure it's strong. Plus, also, I feel like built-in babysitter. I feel like 1 week out of every summer in about 4 years, I'll be able to go on
Mhm.
vacation. You're going to brother's house. Live it
There you
up.
go.
Well,
Yeah.
you did give them no roots, and now you had to let him have his wings, and I think you'll do
Yeah.
well.
That's right. Anka says,
Okay.
hello. It says, it never ceases to amaze me how anyone gets out of this brain control and evil cult, and that there are people like Liz who go on to raise whole, kind adults is astounding.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, not to be a downer, but I've been through it. I've been through it. I've seen a lot of people not make it out. A lot of people. And honestly, the risk in that happening was just too high to it was just too much of a risk. I wasn't willing to take it. So,
Let me ask you this, Liz. Do you think what happened, and I don't mean to bring up bad, but do you
you're
think
fine.
because of what you saw with your brother that had an effect on getting your kids out of there, or your child?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Because my brother really did have the best, I mean, not really, but it appeared
No.
like, and a lot of people
Yeah.
put effort into him having the best Scientology education. And I mean, when you have MIT professors saying a 15-year-old is brilliant, is like their most
Very
brilliant
intelligent.
student, you have something really special on your hands. You have and those it's like a gem, and it was not cared for. Like that type of person that's who's different, who's special, who doesn't conform into the norm,
Yeah.
they don't do well in that environment. And I would never expect anybody in my any kid I'm going to have is not going to conform.
Right.
Like but that's also because I want to I raise them with a lot of this open-ended early childhood stuff where it's like you are who you are and you can, express yourself and all the,
Yeah, you can
rainbows
think.
and butterflies.
Yeah, you can think for yourself.
Yeah,
So,
why do all that and then
Yeah.
let them be, I don't know, put in, it's like those little kid toys where they have to put the right size in the right hole.
Yes.
It's
right.
like, no, I want to offer the world with all the shapes, not just one shape.
Yeah.
And
That's
that
so
is,
unique. Just fostering their uniqueness and their
yes.
individuality is everything. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I saw some out in the garage, maybe under where the paint is. Good luck. He needs painter's tape.
And you're not asking what he's painting?
I think he's refinishing my old guitar, actually.
Oh.
So
Oh, okay.
I already knew what he was
Oh.
doing. And I know that we don't have any painter's tape. So that's
I
like
love it.
95% of being a mom, I feel like, is just being asked where random objects are at very random moments.
Yeah. That's probably true.
That was so
As if,
good.
I mean, and maybe this is the case, as if you have a running like catalog of every
Yeah,
single object that exists in your house.
I know. Sometimes I get annoyed, and then other times I'm like, they must think I am Wonder Woman. They
Yeah.
must think that I just have the ability to locate every lost object and just know everything.
Know exactly what drawer
Or
was that.
Mikey, sometimes with my son, he'll be like, Mom, where's the cup? Where's the
Yeah.
cup? And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's right in front of you.
Mhm.
So silly.
Can't find it,
So
ask
silly.
Mom. Yep.
That's
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so
Um,
you want to hit some questions here, Gretchen? Did you want
Keila,
to? Yes.
can I just ask? I'm not going to go, because Keila has the last question always. I give that to her.
Well, I'm going to
But
wait
I
till
have
we answer
kind
the
of
question.
my own last question. Can I ask it first?
Sure. Yeah, because I'm not going to ask her
Um,
till the end.
yeah, well, I'll ask it now. I can't wait. I'm impatient sometimes. If, like, what do you hope for your kids if and when they become parents, if they choose to be parents, what do you hope for them as they become parents?
I hope that they have a fully stocked mother-in-law apartment in the back of their property, preferably with a hot tub and pool accessible, and that I can use
Specifically
them
for one
immediately.
particular mother,
Yeah.
grandma.
No, gosh, well, I mean, I'll be honest, I definitely would like them to wait a little bit longer than I did. Um, I feel like your 20s are so awesome, and there's probably a sweet spot where you can enjoy a lot of your 20s and still be, a youthful parent if that's like a goal that you have for a little bit earlier in your life. Um, I hope, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't really have any like specific hopes other than that they would have like healthy, happy children that they have good relationships with, and um, they have as many parents and caregivers around to love and support them. I mean,
Yeah.
my sister-in-law and her husband, they do have a mother-in-law like thing downstairs, and just having that extra set of people is really awesome. So I would hope that they have a full and thriving community of people that they feel safe to share burdens and learn from. I don't
Nice.
know. I'm being very general because I don't want to be like, I hope they have 3 children and a dog, and that the little one goes to Yale and she takes ballet. I don't care about any of that.
Yeah. No, that
Uh,
makes sense.
John,
Yeah. Thank you.
okay, John, you want to bring up some questions or
I
or
would be
Gretchen?
really disappointed, however, if Scientology got introduced into their lives. I
Uh,
would
oh,
say-
do they? I was going to ask you that. Do they know? I mean, are your kids well aware of the Scientology and the?
Well, yeah. I mean, though the little one, he's just like, well, you're always talking about it. I don't know. But my oldest, he lost family too.
Yeah,
Like he had to move. He was old enough to
right.
remember all of that. Um, yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. Wait, what was the question?
that's the bad. No, 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 no. That's the bad part. That's what Reese was saying about Huxley. That was the worst thing for her because
Yeah,
everything that he knew was just gone.
yeah. Ooh, I was gonna say, I do wonder if now that he's 18, if anybody from that
Right.
side of the family might reach out to him. But again, I've done a good job, and he's done a good job, and his dad's done a good job, and um, he is a fully formed person. Like I still think 25 is my kids aren't allowed to do a lot of stuff till they're 25 as far as I'm concerned. They'll still do it, but I'm like, don't swear till you're 25. Don't get a tattoo, because in my mind I'm like, you're still a baby. um
Yeah,
but
make sure all that is just finished developing first.
exactly. But if they were introduced to it, family came back and said, hey, we really want to show it to you or whatever. I feel like our communication, our relationship, and the basis of his understanding, I think he's good to go.
You gave him great roots.
Mhm.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Kathy Ann.
Yeah. I'm 50, blind. Gretchen, somebody have to read this.
Okay, yeah, I will. Kathy Ann identified with Liz so much when I first saw her story. I'm Irish Cherokee, so her love for the land and tradition of it, I can understand and appreciate.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have often said I miss that particular piece of property almost more than the humans.
Yeah.
And, I guess it all goes back to nature. It all still there.
Mhm.
But yeah, I would do it again though. I would give up anything. If I had to do it again, I would have given up more. If to know that I could have possibly ended up here today, looking back and being able to sit here and say, I have a healthy son who, has a plan. I mean,
Right.
but he's going somewhere. He's doing something.
Yeah.
And he was never in Scientology. And even that loss of the relationship of my parents, at least there's a piece in that, because there is a closed door that because my stepdad, before my oldest, I was like 16 weeks pregnant. He said, your child will be a Scientologist, whether you like it or not.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I knew what I was up against, and I would do it again. So I miss that land too, and I appreciate the solidarity.
Mhm.
May we all get to our back to our roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hockey Town John in the backstage there. He says, Liz, just wanted to say that I respect you so much for the choices you made for yourself and for your family. And you do it with such style and grace. You're an inspiration to so many in this community.
Oh my gosh, John, you're gonna make me cry. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I am genuinely doing the best I can. And as much grace as you're giving me now, I hope you'll extend when I make the next mistake.
We all do.
Don't
We're
look
all
at it as
human.
Yeah.
mistakes. Just live
It's
with
not an if, it's
experience.
a when.
It's experiences.
That's right.
I appreciate it. I really do.
Next, Mandy McGee. Question: would you do anything differently? What have you learned from raising your kids out of a cult?
Gosh. You know, I mean, I suppose if I had a little more calculation at the time and I had been a little less emotional, I do wonder if there's a way that I could have kept some more of my family lineage, heritage, something for my kids. I really did kind of walk away, like, um, and maybe if I had kind of jumped through a few more hoops, really uncomfortable hoops for me, maybe I could have solidified something like a piece of the land, a chunk of the land, or like some kind of something. So maybe that, but that feeling is quickly dissipating because I don't want to say a kid is done being raised at 18. I'll never be done. But there's something about him becoming an adult that I'm able to look back now and be like, well, I did that chapter. And it turned out good. Like it turned out okay. And I'm
Mhm.
starting to realize that now.
Great
Like,
answer.
slowly starting to
Give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
Mhm. Sophie,
Sophie.
I think the idea a child is not a child is so abusive. Reminds me of hippie parenting in a different way. The children raise themselves.
Yeah. That was so much of my upbringing, truly, was like Scientology and then this very laissez-faire, like, do whatever you want. You don't live here anyway.
Was it more permissive parenting than Liz, or more just like almost neglectful, kind of just
A little bit of
latch,
both.
kind of like out there on your own?
A little bit of both. I mean, everybody in my family moved out when they were like 14, 15. So that was just sort of the norm. So I think that's very dangerous. I certainly wouldn't send a 14-year-old out into the world on their own.
Right.
Or like I moved into the college dorms when I was 15. Like what? I don't know. Oh, thanks, Sandy. That's sweet.
Yes, I agree, Sandy.
Liz
She
is an
is.
amazing human and a fantastic mom.
Thank
Yes, she is.
you. It's a job. It takes a lot of work. It's good.
Sophie.
Underpaid, but very rewarding.
Right?
No, I don't. Wait, is there payment for it? No.
Yeah,
A
right.
payment? Yeah. I'll put it on their tab.
Yeah.
Their mother-in-law room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. That's right.
Right.
Sophie, I don't think Liz's children are joining any cult. She's given them a solid foundation of free thought.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
I hope not. I sometimes think about like the rebellion of children, right? Like how I've joked about how like that would be the rebellion. Like, I'm joining a cult, Mom. You can't stop me.
Come here.
Yeah. But hey, the truth is, I really have to say, I think the truth is that like all of us are susceptible to joining high control groups or relationships, even when we think we haven't, or we've been through it before, or our mama's raised us right. They're still
Right.
like they're sneaky. So
Very much so. And it's always great at the front. So you
yeah,
don't know.
exactly.
Yeah. Sophia, Scientology, just a version of fundamentalism with past lives, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's what
can
Liz
be.
and I were talking about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you think about like the scope of how fanatic somebody can be in a religion. Like you have take just basic Christianity. Like there's a huge scope of involvement. You can be so fanatical on one end, and on another end you can, be a Christian and don't go to church or whatever that looks like. I don't
Right.
want to define that, but there's a huge scope. And it is a little
Yes.
bit true for Scientology. The problem becomes, in my opinion, is that when you continue in Scientology, it becomes like you are expected to adhere to it 100% of it as being 100% true. Whereas I think in some of the more like, I don't know, in some other religions, maybe there's you can interpret things a different way or you can like talk about it. No, there's none of that. It is just L. Ron Hubbard,
Yeah, you can
100%.
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I
So it
wasn't
is.
raised in, but
Well, on
yes,
that same
I was
point,
raised in it.
does your husband have a certain religious or faith background? I don't know if you guys
He
spoke about this earlier.
he was raised, I'm not gonna say fundamental Christian, but he was raised, I call it like pretty hardcore. Um,
Yeah.
and again, I don't want to like overstep representation of his family, but I will say that over the time that I've known them, the last 20 years, they, as all families have come into situations with different people in their family where they could have reacted more fanatically or double down in a way that kind of shut that person out. And I didn't see that happening. I saw like a lot of tolerance continue to arise in those
Right.
situations over the last 20 years. So anyway, that,
Did you
yeah,
did you have a discussion with him about like how were your kids exposed to some of that,
for sure. Actually, yeah.
like some
And
of that religious kind of?
yes, we told all of them, actually, even my parents, we did tell all of them. Because he has two sets of parents because his parents divorced and then remarried.
Mhm.
So essentially the three grandparent set and the great grandparent set, we did tell them all, we really want you, like we want our children, him, it was just the one at the time, we want him to know what you believe. We want you to feel free to talk to them about what you believe, but we don't want it to come across as the only way.
Mhm.
And he had some expectations of his particular parents, like, we were pretty clear about heaven and hell. We did not want discussions like that, like you're going to go to hell or whatever. And I guess that was something that he had remnant, and that was actually a great opportunity for that to come back up in their family and talk about some different things, and they evolved and grew a lot together.
That's good.
I was told my parents like no Scientology, but that made me suspect. We also said
Right.
no McDonald's. We have these strange American children who have never had McDonald's.
For real?
Yeah.
How
I
did I
think
miss
maybe
that?
the oldest one maybe got snuck some when he was a toddler, but yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah.
Um, Hello, humble guide. I don't know if I've seen you, so welcome if you're new.
It's Amy. Mhm.
Liz, were you scared when you had your firstborn, or more scared with your second one?
I mean, for sure the first one, because he was a bit of a surprise. My husband and I really hadn't known each other as long as one would hope. So there were a lot of other sort of factors happening during the time of my first child. The second one was like a planned, also 8-year difference, totally different circumstances. Yeah. So, and it's kind of like that Huggies commercial where like the first one, you like wrap them in plastic wrap. And then the second one, you're like a little bit better. If I had another one, they'd be like eating dirt in the backyard right
Yeah.
now. I wouldn't even know.
This is so the truth.
Kathy Ann, when I was getting my associates, we had to watch old footage of studies done of how children react when affection is denied, even for a few minutes, much less on a long-term basis. Heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually had a talk with one of my professors I think it was like my third semester, first year, last semester. I can't remember. I had a really bad reaction to some, I forget what it was now, but yeah, it was a video that we watched, and it was something like this. I think it also had to do with like abuse. It was rough.
Yeah.
And I had to get talked down. But I learned also that in those vulnerable moments, if you are in a safe space where you can like kind of communicate with the people around you, especially in a school setting like that, like, hey, turns out that really triggered my upbringing.
Yeah.
That can be
What a
helpful.
learning experience.
Well, yeah, and honestly, my professors got to know my story a little bit more,
Yeah.
and I can only assume that that did tailor a little bit. I know they didn't like cater
Yeah.
to me, but people think Scientology is real weird. They've definitely asked me questions and probably wanted to help me learn. So yeah.
Yeah, and in addition
Um,
to that, like Kathy Ann said, I think there was another study about, I don't know if she's talking about this one, about like kids in orphanages, kids that didn't, for whatever reason,
Yes.
found themselves in the term orphanage obviously is an older, antiquated term, but back
okay.
then, yeah.
Mhm.
So talking about that,
Continue.
last night we had Miss Sunrise Dawn had a live where we were holding space for Sin. Oh hell no, and her husband. I mean for her, about her husband
Mhm.
yesterday.
Mm.
And I met Journey, um, or Sarah, and this is the first time I'd heard of her, and I was so glad because I watched her story this morning, and I was just like, wow, she's the first thing she got on there, she was crying, she was upset last night, and it was about the children that the Scientologists in Uganda, the children they're buying the Scientologists are getting stats for how many kids they can get into those orphanages that parents were killed from the landslides and things like that. And Scientology is buying up, putting all these kids in orphanages that have no parents.
Mm.
She was bawling. I was like, I had no idea.
I'll have to
So
watch that.
I'm gonna definitely have a deep dive into that because she said that's how they're making their stats.
Right. And that's what it is. It's
Oh
all about
God!
That's how they keep the pressure going every
Now they've
single
got
week. You
kids.
gotta perform. Well, that's the thing. Your stats can be bodies, bodies in
Oh
the shop. That's a literal
yeah!
Scientology stat. Jeez.
Wow!
Yeah.
It was it was
Wow.
uh, it was gut wrenching.
Hi, Tampa B man.
Yeah,
Look,
there
there's journeys.
you can
There's
listen
journeys.
to the
Perfect.
Journey's channel there.
Yeah, she was just. I mean, she was crying when she came on stage. And that's what it was over. But when you watch her story, and she does it in two parts, you'll be crying when it's over.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Don't
yes, Liz,
get
I
me
agree. We are all
started.
people joining a cult. There is a lot of cult-like thinking in society today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a nonconformist, I suppose you'd say, in societal standards. Like I play
Mm.
well, but I'm a
Yeah.
non-believer in society. No, I'm just kidding.
I agree with those societal standards so much. There's so much we could go into there just about them trying to get my sleep. Why? Because society says I have to go to bed at 9 o'clock and get up at 4 or 5 o'clock. Okay, I
Right.
sleep when I get sleepy. So, I
Right.
mean, we could go into all that. That's for another day.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
having issues with that one now.
yeah, it's a big topic. I mean, that could be a whole video by itself. But yeah,
Right.
nonconformity and just the idea. I come from a place often of tolerance and acceptance. Just
Mhm.
not necessarily that you have to agree with everything or everything that everyone talks about, but just holding space for the fact that even though it could be vastly different from how you feel,
Mhm.
like understanding and being curious about it. And
Yeah.
there are so many issues that are so divisive now that it's
Mhm.
hard to see, yeah, that this
Yeah.
us versus them mentality, which
Mhm.
Scientology and other cults definitely do. I mean,
Everywhere.
I've heard, and not to throw any particular religion under the bus, because I think there's a lot of benefit in many religions and spiritual backgrounds, but when I hear in certain churches people say the enemy, it's
Right.
like, it's kind of weaponizing the other. Not weaponizing, I should say weaponizing, like just kind of that term
Yeah.
triggers me,
Yeah.
the thought
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
something being the enemy we have
Right.
to fight against, so
Yeah, there's so much implied just with one
yeah,
word. Language is so powerful.
it is.
Yeah.
Oh, and then Kathy Ann put, I think, the Journey's
Story part one.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her. Yeah.
So, and I think that's about it of what we started, or the questions that we have or comments.
Okay.
Awesome.
Keilah, you have any final words here?
Oh, yes, I do. So, Liz, I always ask everyone at the end of every show that comes on or live. So if you could say one thing to any now this one's gonna be hard for me because I'm not sure how to word this one. Okay, so to any women or under the radar Scientologists or just getting out of Scientology with their children, what would be your advice to them? If you could say something and they could hear you right now, what would you tell them?
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand the question. I'm specifically women leaving Scientology with their children.
With their children. Mothers, yes.
Yeah. My advice, first thing I would say is hold on. You're going to be okay. That's the first thing to know. I think my piece of advice would be that when you're ready and seeking community again, do not be fearful of the agencies out there, like social services, child protective services. In Scientology, we're really taught that these are like they're out to get you. But in general, what I've found are that helping organizations, if you are truly a mother who wants to do her best and you are working toward building something for yourself, they can be really good resources. You can get help with, diapers, back to school clothes, school supplies. And I know it's not all monetary, but
that plays a big part of
the
it.
community, the community and the resources and the connections you can make. That would be my advice, would be to even the free parenting classes that they have, at your local community center. Just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the resources that are out there to help you, because you may have been told that they're out to harm you. But I think if you give it a shot, you'll see that everybody wants you to succeed. And as a whole society and culture out here, we want you and your children to do well and be happy and healthy and safe. So please reach out as much as you feel comfortable. That's what I would say.
Perfect.
Well said.
Perfect. Well said.
And hit me up. I'm here for you.
Well said. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Liz, for coming.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for what you're doing on this channel. I really, it's really valuable and important, and I don't know. I'm here for it, and I was honored to be asked. So thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Thank you,
Liz.
Maud.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maud, for everything that you have done. Thank you, John. And thank everybody in the chat. We truly appreciate y'all being here. And Gretchen.
And those that are on replay too. I always like to thank those replay folks.
Marilyn will be in here on replay because she has builders at her house.
Okay.
Contractors. Or she wouldn't have missed it.
And the conversation, am I right in saying, Keilah, with Liz here, she started, and I don't know, just what you've shared with today has been amazing, but we're going to maybe continue the conversation a bit. Is that right? Tomorrow?
Oh, that's
Alicia.
Alicia's tomorrow.
No, not with Liz, but
on this. Yeah, we're going to about
continue in terms of the topic.
Yes, parenting after.
She's great.
She's amazing. Yes, she's y'all. It's y'all are just an honor to me to know, and to just the little bit that we're in your lives, or you're amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wow, I feel the same about you guys.
And I enjoy. This is the first time we've met like this, but I've definitely been in your chat and been a lurker in your videos. I'm one of those lurkers oftentimes. So
there you go. We'll say hi next time. I'll be there. Awesome.
But yeah, tomorrow I believe we're doing it 4:30 Central Time.
Yeah, I gotta make sure I get that.
Write that down, Gretchen. No.
Gretchen.
Oh,
Four
man.
thirty.
It's
It was you
endearing
before
that you got the time wrong.
Oh my gosh. I'm never gonna live this down, am I?
I love it.
Hey, I wasn't late this.
I know. We're all just thinking we're happy it was you and not us.
That's what we were
Oh,
saying.
man. I know. I should just let you guys roll with it, but I promised Keilah I would be, her partner in crime today, like we normally are, or try to be.
Well, I'm glad you were here.
I'm glad you were here too, definitely.
Yeah, I'm glad. I mean, Keilah and I both kind of work in mental health in different capacities, so it's kind of cool how we have different kind of come from a different angle. So
yeah,
but
it
I
really is
appreciate you
like
coming.
totally different. Well, not totally different, but as far as I don't know, it really is. We work well together.
Yeah.
So
I
I truly appreciate Gretchen agreeing to do this channel with me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked.
And okay, well, we will say goodbye. And Liz, please, I hope to have you back on. I may hit you up for our next subject that comes up where we're always coming up with different topics that people want to hear about, talk about. And like I said, we don't ever leave anyone here, even though Liz is a little different. She's got her own channel and all stuff, but we do have our Facebook page, Mental Health Matters group, and the conversation just jumps from here and continues there. And then we just we never leave anyone alone. I tell people that come on, like, that don't have their own channel, that you're not alone. We don't leave you alone. We just jump on to the Mental Health Matters Facebook group, and we just continue that conversation there.
We had some cool peer support discussions yesterday, which was cool to see. So that's pretty neat.
Yes. And we do we do it. We're doing it every week, but
mine too. Yeah.
Face to face, like Zoom peer support meetings. Yes.
So a little bit of both yesterday. Yeah.
So yeah, feel free. I'll send you the information. Our next one. Feel free if you're not busy, you jump in, because we like to do it over the topic of the week. But then we throw. I mean, it's just whatever anybody wants to talk about. But it's just face to face peer support.
Yeah.
People like to see us. I mean, we see them.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, so
Right.
everyone have a great day, and I've got to get to this thing first. So, okay. All right. Everybody have a great day. I will talk to you later.
Liz. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank